to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
Hello, all Antiochian men in the Diocese of Miami in the Southeast. We're back with another episode of Ask Father Hans. Father Hans, good morning.
Good morning, Michael, and good morning, Antiochian men.
Here's our next question for you, Father. I have heard you say that the recovering of one's manhood occurs in our deepening communion with Christ. What does that process look like for the average guy who wants a personal relationship with Christ but doesn't know how to have one?
First, the theology, and it's really important. And it's really the anthropology, one of my favorite words. Comes from the Greek anthropos, and it means man. And when we draw closer to Christ, we become more of ourselves. And how does that work? Because redemption is really a return to who God created us to be. So in a sense, it's natural. It's a return to the original creation. When we hear that Christ came to redeem the fallen Adam, what that really means is we are becoming more like Adam was before the fall. And so this is a journey. It's completed. It's completed at the end of time, really, after the final judgment. That's where its completion is. But it's really a return to what creation was before Adam fell. So what's happening here in the whole creation, the whole redemption process, the whole redemption story is God is taking what was fallen and he's redeeming it. That process of redemption occurs within us because as we are redeemed, so is the entire cosmos. The creation fell. The evidences of that fall is that there's death in the world, and it brings in the disorder, the disease, the decay, even the civil strife. James says, why are there wars among you? It's because wars rage in your own heart. So when a man changes, when a man draws closer to Christ, he's actually undergoing the process of redemption and returning to what God made him to be. On our side of that, it's discovery. And it's primarily self-discovery is what it is. Now, that's what's going on. Now, if a man decides, I need to follow Christ, and all men do, they have it in their heart. It's just whether they listen to it or not, whether they open their heart to that calling or whether they harden it. Alexander Solzhenitsyn says that the dividing line between good and evil ultimately is in man's heart and moves back and forth within it. And the direction in which it moves really depends on the calling, responding to the calling of our Father in heaven and discovering who he is. And as I said, in that discovery, discovering who we are as well. I contend that it cannot occur without community, without brotherhood. I think brotherhood is the context in which that occurs. We live in, we're individuals, but we're not atoms. Okay, so individuality means that we have our own personal particularity. We have our own personalities. We have our own gifts. We have our likes. We have our dislikes, right? And that's what makes talking to people so interesting. Because when you talk to people, you discover who they are. But in that discovery, you discover something about yourself as well. There's communion. And men need communion with other men. We talk about that a lot. But I think it is so basic and so fundamental that salvation cannot be found apart from the brotherhood. So yes, the commitment is personal, the actualization, the experience of redemption actually happens within brotherhood. Now, we're going a little longer than we usually do, but let me tell you a story. This just happened like 4 days ago. I got a call from a guy who was 26 years old, and he had become Orthodox. And his life journey, he told me his whole story over the phone. His life journey is very, very interesting. And particularly that he came to see that Christ was the only path to the freedom that his soul longed for. Now, like every one of us that are alive today, there's still stuff that needs to be healed up. Coming to Christ, becoming Orthodox in particular, which is the most powerful of all, doesn't mean that the change is automatic. We have to work on our stuff. And he had some significant stuff that he still had to work on. During the call, we talked for about an hour. During the call was interrupted. Somebody called in. He had to take that call. I said, take the call and call me back when you're done. I had actually pulled off the road to take this call and to talk to him. And so when the break came, I thought, this is a great time to pray for it. And I did. And I went into what I call deep prayer, really prayed for the guy. And the Lord spoke to me. And I say this with a little trepidation, but he does. When we seek God, when we're talking about communion with God, we're talking about interaction, fellowship. God is our Father. God seeks to make us strong. God seeks to give us his knowledge. God seeks to lead us on the path that leads to our flourishing. No one desires the healing of these young men and ourselves more than God. And I tell people this a lot. Don't ever doubt it. So the Lord speaks to me and he says, you know, I'm putting this in my own language because this is how I heard it, okay? All he needs is a spiritual father and 3 years of authentic brotherhood with other Orthodox men. That's all he needs. Put him in a place where he has authentic brotherhood. It's the communion with his brothers and his seeking of me that is going to bring him healing. That's how powerful the brotherhood is. You know, does he need psychotherapy? Does he need drugs? All this stuff. No. What he needs is the authentic, concrete love of other men and to learn the love of God the Father. And that way his healing is going to come. And so I'm 50% done with that project. This was 4 days ago. I called a friend who's actually started a brotherhood in the city and where he lives. I told him the story. I said, you need to be the leader of this brotherhood. He says, well, I was really wondering if I should be or not because, you know, I didn't want to just like put myself out there. I said, no, you need to be the leader. You need to be the leader. And he says, well, we've got 5 or 6 guys already. And I said, go to it. All that's left now is to call him back. I'll do that this afternoon. I'll say, I've got a group for you. You've got to meet this guy. I'll connect them and it'll be good. It'll be good. You know, the work of God will be done in his life. So communion with Christ, there's a tremendous amount of self-discipline and work that's going to be required on our part. But it happens within the context of the brothers. It's absolutely necessary. I don't think any man can do it on his own. We'd like to think we can do it on our own, but the truth is we can't. So, men who are listening to this, strengthen your own brotherhoods. Strengthen them. Understand that the reason everybody is there because of the longing that they have for communion with their Father in heaven, our true Father. But to be a true son, you got to love the brethren and you got to strengthen them. That's the dynamic, and that's how the communion begins and flourishes.
Open to me the doors of repentance, O life giver, for my soul goes early to the temple of thy holiness, coming